All right, and welcome to another edition of Dolan's Dugout with Steve Dolan. I'm Ramon Scott. Steve, Dolan's Dugout has been around in one way, shape, or another longer than your guest tonight. Joining us, Braden Surprenant, 97.3 The Fan, Steve.
Well, Ramon, we're glad to have Braden with us tonight. He is, of course, the voice of prep football on 97.3 The Fan, along with Coach John Quintera. And, you know, this Friday night, they're coming to East County. We have the Grossmont at Granite Hills game. Now, Braden, I know you've seen both teams before. Talk a little bit about both teams. I know you saw Granite Hills in week 1 beat Poway. Week 2, you saw Grossmont beat Model Day. So talk a little bit about both those teams if you could.
Well, both teams are, built around their offenses. We saw Granite Hills do it against Poway in week 1. And, Poway's a pretty good football team. I thought that was a pretty good win for Granite Hills, especially out of the gate. Head coach Kellen Cobbs has done a tremendous job with his Granite Hills Eagles. Kind of struggling of late, against the teams like Steel Canyon and, Madison got them good. But, even in that Madison game, they kind of let Madison get out to a big lead. And then, they came up just a little too late in the second half. But I really like Granite Hills. Talk about Grossmont a little bit. Watch Grossmont against Mater Dei. Mater Dei was just too young on defense to hang with Grossmont offensively. And I think we said on the broadcast, Grossmont runs the high tempo air raid spread offense better than anybody else in San Diego County. And working at TCU and knowing the offense that they run over there, I see a lot of teams try to do it, but only I think Grossmont and probably a handful of teams actually run it properly. Grossmont runs that to a T. They got plays off in like 15 seconds. They got a lot of studs out on the wideout position. Their running back Robert Tucker is doing a tremendous job as well. To me, this is a game. I think these two teams are the most evenly matched teams in the Grossmont Hills League. Out of the Grossmont Hills, I think it's kind of broken up in tiers. I think Helix and Steel Canyon are kind of, got the notch up in that league. Valhalla and El Cap probably the notch below. But right in the middle, the two evenly matched teams, Granite Hills and Grossmont. I think it's going to be a really good game on Friday, and we're looking forward to going out to Granite Hills for the first time since our first inaugural broadcast we had, Granite Hills and Helix last year. We did the site check today. Everything checked out, and they're really excited to have us. And Coach and I are really excited to be there, and so is Chris Ello and Tony Gwynn Jr. They're going to get us kicked off at 3 o'clock. They're going to do their show live from Granite Hills from 3 to 7, and it's going to be a fun time on Friday night.
Now, Braden, when you do these games with Coach Quintero for 97.3 The Fan, and it's also on the Radiocom App too, I know you do a lot of preparation. Now, when you look forward to this week's game, what are going to be the keys to this game for Granite, for Grossmont? What does Granite have to do to win? What does Grossmont have to do to win? What are the keys?
Well, I think keys for both these teams is just slow the other team down. They're both built on their offenses, and whoever's going to make the stop is going to win the game. We could potentially see a shootout on Friday night. And I know both D coordinators don't want to admit to potentially giving up a shootout, but for me, it's going to be the play of their defenses, and we've seen a lot of guys throughout Grossmont's defense and Granite Hills defense that can make some impacts, and I'd like to see both defense try to slow down each other's offenses, because this game has the making to be a lot of points put on the scoreboard.
Braden, somewhere along the way, the Grossmont Foothillers passed up the Granite Hills Eagles. The Granite Hills Eagles won this game last year on Grossmont's turf, 44-20. They, quite frankly, beat them down pretty good in that game, so that was on the road. Now, Grossmont is ahead of Granite Hills in all the rankings, and maybe they've earned it. A little bit of criticism of their schedule. Granite Hills' schedule hasn't been the toughest either, but now you put them at Valley Stadium. I'm not sure that those projections that have Granite Hills maybe winning this game by a couple of touchdowns are even close. I mean, it looks like a toss-up written all over it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a toss-up. Last year, Grossmont wasn't the team that we've seen, over the last handful of years, dealing with some injuries potentially, just not having the team that they've had in the last couple of years. But I think that team has, definitely changed since last year. And, I think Grossmont, honestly, if I had to pick a favorite in this game, I think Grossmont's probably the favorite in my opinion. Based on the CalPreps ratings that are out, and the CIF ratings, and what have you, and even the UT ratings, that we all vote in. But For me, I think Grossmont is favored. I think we're going over it. I think they're, according to CalPreps, they're projected to win 35-31.
Wow.
According to the CalPreps ranking system. And, CalPreps, they're pretty accurate with a lot of their predictions. Granted, some of the, big margin games are kind of out there because I think Helix this week's favored to win 62-0 over, Valhalla or whoever they're playing. But, for the most part, I think this game's going to be very evenly matched. I would give the slight edge to Grossmont over Granite Hills, but it's basically a toss-up, like you were saying, Moni. It's going to be a coin flip game between these two teams, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Steve, Granite Hills leads the all-time series 26-21, but the Foothillers have won 7 out of the last 9 meetings.
So I mean, it's gonna be a close one. I think this year. I think Granite Hills is back on the up and up. Granite went through some down years over the last handful of years. I like to see them be a contender in the Grossmont Hills League for years to come. I think Kellen Cobbs has built that program to a contender in the Grossmont Hills League. Granted, I mean they were a tri-champion last year with Helix and Steel Canyon. So these teams. And I think this league in general has done a tremendous job, being probably one of the most talked about leagues in San Diego. You got the Western League, you got the Avocado League. I'd put the Grossmont Hills League up there with those. I honestly, if I had to rank the leagues, I think they're probably the second best league in San Diego behind the Western League. But they got a league where Helix beat the 2 best teams in the Western League. So it's pretty evenly matched, I think, out there. I'm curious to see what happens next year with the tweaks with the league realignment and what have you out there in the East County. But I'm excited to see this game on Friday, and I'm still going to give us probably a slight edge to Grossmont over Granite.
Now, Braden, when you do the game Friday night, the Grossmont at Granite Hills game. Of course, it's on 97.3 The Fan, which is the Padres station. But also talk a little bit about this Radio.com app, because I know people can go to the game. You can be at the Grossmont Granite game, but you also can be listening to it on radio, or if you're at the El Cap game or the Helix game or wherever you're at, you can listen to the Grossmont Granite game while you're at your other game, correct? Or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead and download the Radio.com app. Moni's got it right there on his phone, all dialed in, ready to go. But yeah, if you're going to the game Friday night at Valley Stadium and you want to listen to the broadcast while we do the game, download the Radio.com app. It's pretty easy. They'll pull up all the local stations based on your location services. Click on the 97.3 The Fan logo, and you'll be listening live to our broadcast. There's a slight delay. It's not that big of a deal. I know a lot of parents that have listened to the game, maybe one play behind, and it's, hasn't affected them too much. So you can listen to that. But if you're going to any other East County game, you want to listen to our game, that's great too. When you're at a game, when you're driving around in your car, you can still have the Radio.com app hooked up to your car, which is great. We give updates through a lot of games throughout the county. We've got reporters. Adam Paul, who's been on this show a handful of times, he gives us live updates from the game of the week he goes to out in the East County. We got a lot of guys that are helping out with Prep Sports Live from Palomar Junior College. They're out there covering games. Drew Cowell is one of our guys. He's at Cal State San Marcos. He'll go to a North County game. And then, of course, Luke Ramirez, the Little League World Series kid from not too long ago. I know he doesn't want to be introduced as that all the time, but I got to give him his due diligence. He did represent San Diego over there in Williamsport, but he's a freelance writer now for the Union Tribune, doing an unbelievable job down there in the South Bay, and he also gives updates. It's kind of fun because if you listen to the Radio.com app or you're listening in the car or on the radio in your car to our broadcast, it kind of sounds like an NFL Sunday. We'll have a reporter checking in from different games, giving scores, letting know what kids have what stats. And then after the game, when you're leaving Valley Stadium after the game, tune in to 97 through the Fan. You can listen on your Radio.com app. We'll play highlights of the game, and we'll also, of course, have out-of-town score. Well, I say out-of-town scores, but around San Diego County, get all the scores before you head home.
Great. Braden, also, one other thing, too, about high school football, we've been talking about the open division, the top 4 teams. I'm thinking it should be maybe Helix, Steel Canyon, Cathedral, St. Augustine, but you've got Mission Hills, Carlsbad right there. What's your take right now? I know what the rankings are with Steel, Helix, Cathedral, Saints in that order, but what do you how do you think it's going to turn out? Or is it too early to know? Does it depend on
any upset this week? This is important this week.
Yeah, league play is very important, and you're going to see a lot of things play out over league play. I was talking with some coaches, and they think the the loser of St. Augustine Cathedral might be out of the playoff, the open playoff, and that would be kind of crazy. But if it was up to me, given my best 4 teams, I would have to go to Helix, Cathedral, Saints, and honestly, I think Carlsbad. We just watched them last week. They're a very good football team. I haven't seen Steel Canyon live, and I know CIF's not using margin of victory, but I still use margin of victory. The way Steel Canyon beat Otay Ranch maybe by a touchdown, and Saints Cathedral completely throttled Otay. We saw the same thing with Bonita Vista. It was a little bit more of a close game with Steel Canyon, and then all of a sudden, Saints hammered Bonita 38-0 or whatever the score was. I'm curious to see how it plays out, and what's really crazy is something for you guys to look out for, after this week. But if Cathedral beats Madison, and how good Madison's rating system, how everybody is so close together, you might see a situation where Steel Canyon, Helix, and Cathedral and Saints all win, and all of a sudden Cathedral jumps to that one spot because the team they played has a higher rating than the teams that Steel Canyon and Helix are going to play. And look, Cathedral just went through their 2, lower level teams that they're going to have to play, either in league or like that stretch where they played Otay Ranch, Eastlake, and in Point Loma, which actually hurts their rating. I mean, because you're playing some teams that are not, up to the same par as you. All of a sudden, when you get into the rating system, look at Helix. I mean, they're going to play El Cap, which is not going to help them, and they're going to play Valhalla, which is also not going to help them in terms of the ratings. And then all of a sudden, Cathedral gets to play Madison, who's got a rating of a 30 on Cal Preps. St. Augustine's got a rating in the 50s, close to the 60s. And then, of course, Lincoln, who's still hanging around, and they're in like the 30s or 40s as well. It's very interesting to see, and you start getting complicated with the ranking system and what have you. And people don't really understand, how a team could be undefeated and not number 1 in the county, or a team like Helix could beat Saints and Cathedral, and then they're not ranked in front of Saints and Cathedral on the Cal Preps rating system. What I've learned with Cal Preps is everything plays itself out. I'm really curious to see how the CIF rankings work, especially come playoff time, because right now it's kind of crazy, and I'm hoping over the next couple weeks or so it'll play itself out. But I posed a question today on our podcast: what happens when an 8 seed comes in and beats a 1 seed by like 3 touchdowns? Is that going to be a serious issue for CIF? And then all of a sudden it's like, are we going to go back to, the system that we had with Cal Preps?
Well, that's what we're fighting with right now. And that's what's going to be the determining factor in why the Grossmont Hills League, what we've talked about, Steve, and what they might have to do, what they're considering, because those games against Valhalla and El Capitan are going to knock that rating down. And that's why the loser of that game, especially if it's Steel Canyon, is going to have a problem at that number 4 and 5 spot, providing there's no upset this week by those live home dogs in the Western League. So that's something they've got to get through anyways. So, Steve, I think we got to run on this, but we just want to plug Braden one more time, the play-by-play man, with our man, the coach, doing color commentary this week. Grossmont at Granite. I'm going to pick an upset this week, Braden. I've got Granite Hills winning this one. It's going to be a thriller, so get your best clutch play-by-play voice ready to call that winning touchdown. It could be someone. It could be, you remember that great catch that Will Burton made in that regular season game against Steel Canyon? Well, watch for Eagle sophomore Zach Burton. He made a 42-yard reception rumbling down the field last week. So look for something like that to happen. Maybe a thriller with Grossmont and Granite Hills this Friday night on 97.3 The Fan. Steve, promote it. Get us out of here. I got to go.
Okay, well, just one last thing, Braden. Take it easy on your stats guy this Friday night, because those numbers are going to add up. It's going to be a tough one, especially if Grossmont run that no-huddle offense, and the numbers are going to be added up. So take it easy on that guy.
Absolutely. You got to keep up with the pace of play. It's going to be fun. Shout out to the Burton family, of course. I went to a school with his cousin Paige, and I got to see him firsthand at Cathedral. It's good to see him and of course, his dad having success over there at Granite Hills.
Well, Braden, thanks so much for joining us on DOLAN'S Dugout, and we'll look forward to being with you Friday night when Grossmont travels to Granite Hills. And for everybody else, have a good night. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, brothers. Thanks, Braden.
Sounds good. I'll see you guys at Beef and Bun on Friday. How's that sound?
See you there after the game. All right, see you there. All right, bye.